The cold linoleum floor pressed against my cheek as blood pooled beneath me, warm and sticky, carrying the metallic scent that filled the dimly lit living room of the penthouse I had once called home. 18 stab wounds, I counted them in my mind as my vision blurred, each one a betrayal etched into my flesh by the person I had loved like a sister. Victoria Reed hovered over me, her face twisted in manic triumph, the knife still dripping in her manicured hand. "You don't deserve this life." "Sophia," she hissed, voice trembling with years of bottled-up envy. The money, the status, the perfect husband. It was supposed to be mine. I tried to speak, to ask why, but only a gurgle escaped. "My name is Sophia Reed, the legitimate daughter of one of New York's oldest real estate dynasties. Stolen at birth and raised in orphanages, while Victoria the nanny's child took my place in the mansion. In my previous life, I married Alexander Grant, heir to a powerful political family, to save our company from ruin. Victoria seduced Ryan Hale, the brilliant but broke scholarship student I had quietly admired, convinced he would become a billionaire. She laughed when Alexander's abuse escalated, when his family humiliated me, when the accident she orchestrated stole the child I carried. And she laughed hardest when Ryan's startup soared, and I became the envied wife until her jealousy drove her to murder me. Darkness swallowed me whole. Then light exploded behind my eyelids. I gasped awake in the back of a black town car, the city lights of Manhattan streaking past the window exactly 5 years earlier. The driver's voice crackled through the intercom. "Miss Reed, we're arriving at the Grant residence for the engagement announcement." My hands trembled as I smoothed the silk of my emerald gown. I was 23 again, alive, the scars of the future still only possibilities. The Grant mansion loomed ahead, all glass and marble, glittering under chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. Inside, the air hummed with calculated laughter and clinking crystal. My parents stood beside Victoria, radiant in white, while Alexander Grant waited center stage in his tailored tuxedo, flashing the charming smile that hid his cruelty. My father cleared his throat, ready to announce the alliance that would merge Reed real estate with Grant political influence. But Victoria stepped forward first, tears already glistening. "I can't do this," she said, voice breaking dramatically. "I can't marry Alexander. Please, let Sophia take my place." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother clutched Victoria's arm, whispering urgently, but Victoria shook her head, playing the selfless angel perfectly. "Sophia has always liked him more anyway," she told me herself. All eyes turned to me. Alexander's gaze swept over me, possessive and hungry, the same look that would later turn violent. My father's face reddened with embarrassment. The deal was slipping. I felt the weight of every stare, the whispers already starting poor Sophia, the orphan girl forced into a loveless match. In my previous life, I had refused, desperate to protect Victoria, believing her tears were genuine. That refusal cost me everything. This time, I stepped forward, chin high, and smiled. "If Victoria doesn't want him, I'll marry Alexander." The room fell silent. Alexander's brows lifted in surprise, then curved into a satisfied smirk. My mother looked relieved, my father calculating. Victoria's eyes widened for a fraction of a second shock, quickly masked as gratitude. Cameras flashed as Alexander took my hand, kissing it with the theatrical gallantry. "I'm the luckiest man alive," he declared. Later, as champagne flowed and congratulations poured in, I slipped onto the terrace for air. The city sparkled below like scattered diamonds. Behind me, heels clicked. Victoria appeared, clutching a flute, her smile sweet poison. "Thank you, sis. You saved me from a terrible mistake." I turned slowly. "Did I?" She laughed lightly. "Alexander's charming, but everyone knows he's unstable. Debts, temper, secrets. Better you than me." Her eyes gleamed with something darker. "Besides, I've found someone far more promising." "Ryan Hale? Poor now, but mark my words, he'll be worth billions one day. I'll be the real queen." My blood ran cold. She remembered, Victoria had reborn too. She leaned closer, voice a whisper. This time, I won't let you steal my happy ending. Then she glided back inside, leaving me gripping the railing until my knuckles whitened. The game had changed. We both knew the future, or thought we did. The weeks that followed were a carefully choreographed dance of false smiles and hidden knives. Engagement photos splashed across page 6 read heiress snags. Grant Golden Boy power. Couple of the decade. Alexander played the doting fiancé masterfully in public roses delivered to my office. Romantic dinners at Michelin-starred rooftops. Instagram posts declaring me the love of his life. In private. The cracks appeared faster than I remembered. Late-night calls he dismissed as campaign business. The faint scent of other women's perfume on his collar. The way his grip tightened when I questioned him. Don't embarrass me. Sophia. He murmured one night, fingers digging into my wrist. You're lucky to have me. I smiled and said nothing, but inside I catalogued every bruise, every threat. At home, the atmosphere shifted like quicksand. My parents doted on Victoria more openly now that the pressure was off her. Our little princess deserves real love, not politics, my mother cooed, while my father nodded approvingly as Victoria paraded Ryan around family dinners. Ryan hale, tall, quiet. Brilliant looked uncomfortable in the opulent dining room, his scholarship blazer out of place among designer suits. Victoria clung to his arm, laughing too loudly at his dry jokes, feeding him bites from her plate like he was already her trophy. Ryan's going to revolutionize fintech, she bragged to anyone who listened. Just wait. Ryan's eyes met mine across the table once, hesitant, almost apologetic. Congratulations on the engagement, he said softly. I raised my glass. And to your bright future. Victoria's smile faltered for a heartbeat. After dinner, I found her in the garden, smoking a cigarette she thought no one saw. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She snapped when I approached. Playing the perfect fiancé while I settle for the pauper. I stepped closer. You chose this. Victoria. Both lives. She exhaled smoke like venom. And you chose wrong both times. Alexander will destroy you. His gambling, his whores, his rage. I know everything. She laughed. But go ahead, marry him. When his family's empire crumbles and he drags you down with it, I'll be sipping champagne in my Hamptons mansion with Ryan. I held her gaze. We'll see. That night, alone in my childhood bedroom, the one they'd kept as a guest room after I moved out, I opened my laptop and began digging. Bank records. I shouldn't have access to yet. Anonymous tips to journalists. Quiet investments in competing startups. If Victoria wanted to play the Rebirth game, I'd play harder. But doubt crept in as I stared at Alexander's engagement ring glinting on my finger. In my previous life, I had endured his abuse, hoping love would change him. Now I was choosing it again, deliberately walking into the fire. Was I becoming the architect of my own destruction, or was this the only way to burn it all down? My phone buzzed, a text from Alexander. Can't wait to make you mine forever. Babe. Followed by a heart emoji. I stared at it until the screen went dark. My reflection staring back eyes harder than I remembered. Mouth set in a line I didn't recognize. The old Sophia would have replied with something sweet. The new one typed nothing. Instead, I opened a secure file labeled Grant Financials and added another document proof of Alexander's hidden offshore accounts, siphoning campaign funds to cover mounting casino debts. His father, the ambitious senator, was about to announce a presidential exploratory committee. Scandals would be fatal. I hesitated, finger hovering over save. One click, and I could end it all now. But not yet. I needed them to feel safe, to believe they were winning right up until the moment they realized they'd lost everything. I closed the laptop and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria was plotting her perfect revenge romance. Alexander was lying to my face, and I was becoming someone capable of destroying them both. The question that kept me awake wasn't whether I could win. It was whether, when it was over, there would be anything left of the girl who once just wanted to be loved. The morning headlines screamed betrayal. Sophia Reed dumps Alexander Grant in explosive press conference. Calls off power wedding. I stood at the podium in a packed Midtown hotel ballroom, cameras flashing like gunfire, and delivered the line I'd rehearsed 100 times in the mirror. This engagement was never about love. It was a transaction, and I'm no longer for sale. The room erupted. Alexander's face, projected on screens behind me, twisted from shock to fury as security escorted him out. I didn't flinch. Not when reporters shouted questions. Not when my phone exploded with calls from my parents. Not when Victoria's name trended alongside mine for stealing her fiancé in a rival tabloid's twisted spin. That night, alone in my new loft overlooking the Hudson, I poured a glass of bourbon and stared at the ring I'd thrown into the trash. My hand shook, not from fear, from rage, and something darker. Doubt. Because ending the engagement publicly had been step one, but it came at a cost. I'd leaked a single document to a trusted journalist. A wire transfer from Alexander's personal account to an underground poker den in Atlantic City. It was meant to wound, not kill. Instead, Alexander spun it as identity theft. And for 48 brutal hours, the media painted me as a gold digger trying to sabotage a good man. Stocks in Reed Properties dipped. My father left voicemails calling me ungrateful. Victoria posted a tearful Instagram story hugging Ryan family first. Always. I almost cracked. Almost called the journalist to pull the story. Then Ethan Grant showed up at my door, unannounced, rain-soaked in a black trench coat, holding a flash drive. Alexander's older brother had always been the ghost in the family, brilliant, overlooked, blamed since childhood for his mother's death in childbirth. "You started something," he said quietly, stepping inside without invitation. "Finish it." The drive contained years of records, Alexander's gambling debts climbing into 8 figures, forged signatures on campaign finance forms, even hospital reports of his escalating cocaine use. Ethan's voice was flat, but his eyes burned. He's going to drag the whole family down. My father's too blind to stop him. I asked the question that had haunted me since Rebirth. Why help me? He met my gaze. Because someone has to pay for what he did to her. He didn't say mom, but he didn't have to. We worked through the night, cross-referencing dates, building a timeline airtight enough to survive any lawyer the Grants threw at it. By dawn, I'd transferred the files to a secure server and quietly incorporated Aurora Tech, my company. My rules: no family money. Ethan left with a warning: he'll come for you harder now. He was right. 2 days later, paparazzi swarmed my building. Anonymous accounts flooded Ets with old photos from my orphanage days. Captioned, "Cinderella was a con artist." A viral thread claimed I'd seduced Alexander for status, then dumped him when a better offer came. Victoria fueled it, subtly retweeting sympathy posts for heartbroken Alex. Ryan stayed silent. But I caught him watching me at a tech conference. Expression unreadable. I refused to hide. Instead, I launched Aurora's beta app, a fintech platform targeting underserved communities, and invited every skeptical reporter to the demo. The room was packed. When a hostile journalist asked how I could focus on business after breaking a man's heart, I smiled. Easy. I'm building something that lasts longer than heartbreak. The app trended. Investors called. And for the first time, the narrative shifted. Sophia Reed, self-made, unbreakable, but victory tasted bitter. That same week, I missed my period. A discreet test confirmed it. I was pregnant. Alexander's child. The irony was cruel. In my previous life, Victoria's staged accident had killed my unborn baby. Now, carrying his child while plotting his ruin. I felt the walls closing in. I booked an appointment at a private clinic in Brooklyn, sat in the waiting room staring at ultrasound brochures, and asked myself if ending it would make me any different from them. I left without seeing the doctor. Instead, I drove to the cemetery where, in my first life, I'd buried that lost child. Kneeling in the cold grass, I whispered, "I won't let history repeat. Not for you." Tears came, then silent, furious. I wasn't crying for Alexander. I was crying for the girl I used to be, the one who believed love could fix anything. Revenge accelerated like a runaway train. Aurora Tech secured seed funding from venture capitalists who loved the underdog founder angle. I hired a small, fierce team and moved into a Soho office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Ethan became my shadow advisor, showing up with coffee and new leads, never asking about the pregnancy I hadn't told anyone about. His own scars ran deeper than I'd realized childhood beatings from a father obsessed with image, years of therapy paid for in secret. I stayed quiet too long. He admitted one night over takeout in the empty office, watching him hurt people, watching him hurt you. His hand brushed mine, lingered. I pulled away. Not yet. Alexander's counterattack came at a charity gala in the Met. I was announcing Aurora's partnership with a women's shelter when he appeared on stage uninvited, microphone in hand, eyes bloodshot. "Sophia lied to all of you." He slurred, voice amplified. "She's carrying my baby and trying to destroy me for money." The room froze. Flashes blinded me. Security moved in, but the damage was done. By morning, hatched Sophia. Secret baby trended worldwide. Victoria wasted no time. Anonymous sources told TMZ I'd trapped Alexander on purpose. My parents finally called. Not to ask if I was okay, but to demand I make it right for the family name. I hung up on my father mid-sentence. Ethan found me on the office rooftop at 3 a.m., staring at the city like it might swallow me. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. I laughed bitterly. "I've been alone my whole life." He stepped closer. Not anymore. For a moment, I let him hold me. Just a moment. Then I straightened. I need to end this. The final pieces fell into place faster than expected. A whistleblower from Alexander's campaign paid off, but Guilty handed over audio of Alexander bragging about embezzling donor funds to cover debts. Combined with Ethan's files and casino security footage I'd obtained through a private investigator, it was undeniable. I scheduled a press conference at City Hall, neutral ground. The day arrived gray and pouring. Reporters packed the steps under umbrellas. Alexander showed up too, flanked by lawyers, looking gaunt but defiant. Victoria stood beside him, hand on his arm in mock support, eyes gleaming with anticipation. I took the podium. "Today isn't about me," I began. "It's about accountability." Behind me, the screen lit up bank statements, audio clips, timestamps. Alexander's face drained of color as his own voice filled the speakers. "Dad will never know. It's just a loan until the next win." Gasps rippled. Victoria's grip tightened. When the evidence finished, I looked straight at Alexander. "You said I was lucky to have you. The truth is, you were lucky I stayed as long as I did." His lawyers tried to interrupt, shouting obstruction, but federal agents were already moving through the crowd. Campaign finance violations carried prison time. Alexander lunged toward me, screaming my name, before cuffs clicked around his wrists. Victoria backed away, pale, whispering. This wasn't supposed to happen. Cameras caught it all. That night, alone again, I placed a hand on the slight curve of my stomach. The cost was steeper than I'd calculated death threats in my inbox. Old friends ghosting me, the constant whisper that I was heartless. I stared at my reflection. Eyes hollow, mouth hard, and asked the question I'd avoided for months. Am I becoming him? Ethan's text lit my phone. "You did what no one else could. Proud of you." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new document titled Aurora Future Projects and started typing. Revenge had cleared the board. Now it was time to build something that couldn't be taken away. The courthouse steps were slick with winter rain as federal marshals led Alexander away in cuffs, his once perfect hair plastered to his forehead, the charming smile replaced by a snarl directed solely at me. Cameras captured every second the disgraced golden boy of American politics. Headlines already writing themselves, "Grant Heir arrested in campaign finance scandal." Victoria stood frozen on the periphery, umbrella forgotten, rain soaking her designer coat as reality crashed down. She bolted through the crowd, but reporters swarmed her too, microphones thrusting forward. "Did you know about the embezzlement?" Miss Reed, she shoved past them without a word, face pale as death. Inside the courthouse lobby, my parents waited, looking smaller than I remembered. My father's voice cracked when he spoke. "Sophia, please, come home. We can fix this as a family." My mother reached for my hand, tears streaking mascara. "Victoria's distraught. She needs you." I looked at them, the people who had chosen a stranger's child over their own flesh and blood twice in one lifetime, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "You chose her the day you brought her home and sent me away," I said quietly. "Live with it." I walked out into the downpour without an umbrella, letting the cold water wash over me. Freedom tasted like rain and steel. Aurora Tech shares soared the next morning. Investors who had hesitated now flooded my inbox, drawn to the woman who had taken down one of the most powerful families in New York. Talk shows begged for interviews. Magazines wanted cover stories titled, "The Queen of Comebacks." I declined them all. Instead, I poured everything into the company new features for financial literacy in underserved communities, partnerships with women's shelters, scholarships in my real mother's name, the one I never knew. Ethan became a constant presence late nights reviewing contracts, quiet dinners where conversation flowed easier than I expected. He never pushed, never asked about the baby I still hadn't confirmed to anyone, but I caught him watching me sometimes with something deeper than alliance. Victoria unraveled in public. Paparazzi photos showed her leaving Ryan's apartment in tears, then checking into a luxury rehab facility for exhaustion. Anonymous sources later traced to her own publicist claimed she had been manipulated by Alexander all along, the innocent victim of a toxic love triangle. The narrative almost worked. Almost. Until the suicide attempt. Guards found her in her cell at the women's detention center with shallow cuts on her wrists and a letter addressed to me. I read it in the prison visiting room. Glass partition between us, her bandaged arms resting on the counter. "You won." The letter began. "I see that now. I hated you because they loved you more even when you weren't there. Mom sang your name in her sleep after the switch was discovered. Dad kept your baby photos in his safe. I was the replacement. Always the replacement. So I took everything I could, your life, your future, your happiness. But it was never enough." She looked up as I finished reading, eyes red-rimmed but clear for the first time. "I'm sorry, Sophia. Not for what I lost, for what I stole from you. I didn't speak. Couldn't." The guard signaled time was up. As she was led away, she paused. "Tell Ryan. Tell him I finally understand why he never looked at me the way he looked at you." I left the prison with the letter folded in my pocket, heavier than any evidence I'd ever held. That night, I stood on my balcony, watching snow begin to fall over the city, hand resting on the now visible curve of my stomach. The baby kicked strong, insistent, a reminder that some things couldn't be planned or revenged away. Ethan found me there, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. "You okay?" he asked. I shook my head. I thought justice would feel cleaner. He stood beside me in silence until I spoke again. She was broken long before I came back. We all were. He took my hand gently. "Doesn't make what she did right. But it makes you human for seeing it." Spring arrived with cherry blossoms along the Hudson and the birth of my daughter Elena, named for the grandmother I never met. I held her tiny fingers in the delivery room, tears falling unashamed as she cried her first cry. Ethan waited outside the door, not presuming to enter until I sent for him. When he stepped in, eyes wide at the sight of the tiny bundle, I saw something shift in him. Fear, wonder, hope. "She's perfect," he whispered. I nodded, throat tight. She deserves a world better than the one I rebuilt out of ashes. Alexander's trial was swift. No plea deal he fought to the end, claiming entrapment, conspiracy, anything to avoid accountability. The jury returned guilty on all counts. Sentencing day, he asked to speak directly to me in court. The judge allowed it. He stood in the orange jumpsuit, handcuffs clinking, and for the first time looked small. "I hated you because you saw me," he said, voice hoarse. The real me. Not the heir, not the future president. Just the addict who couldn't stop destroying everything he touched. "I thought if I broke you first, you couldn't break me." He paused, eyes glistening. "I was wrong. You didn't break. You built." He sat down without another word. 10 years. No parole. My parents sold the Hamptons house to cover legal fees for Victoria's defense. But charges against her accessory after the fact. Perjury stuck. She took a plea 5 years. Ryan disappeared from public life. His startup quietly acquired by a larger firm. No billions, no fairy tale, just survival. Aurora Tech went public 18 months later. Valuation in the tens of billions. I rang the NASDAQ bell in a simple black dress. Elena on my hip, Ethan at my side. Cameras flashed. But I looked only at my daughter's wide eyes reflecting the trading floor lights. That night, we walked through Central Park under a full May moon. Elena asleep in her stroller. Ethan finally asked the question he'd carried for years. "Do you think you could ever?" With me, I stopped walking, turned to face him. The man who had stood in the shadows his whole life, who chose truth over family, who waited without demanding. I thought of Victoria's letter, Alexander's confession, the girl I'd been who trusted too easily, and the woman I'd become who trusted too little. "I'm terrified," I admitted. He smiled softly. "Good. Me too." He reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. We walked on, the city humming around us, past and future overlapping in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had built something stronger empire. Family. Self, all on my own terms. The snows had melted, the ashes settled. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was exactly where I chose to be.